There is great insecurity among average, everyday Rhode Islanders, both job insecurity and financial insecurity. Too many report that they are barely managing to keep up with increasing bills, and disturbingly, they are unable to save for their children's future and their retirement. The constant increases in our already high cost of living worries them and darkens what should be their bright futures. They are fed up with a broken government, a government that makes their lives harder, a government that takes too much, wastes too much, and refuses to be held accountable to the people who pay the bill. Many have lost hope. This is the reality they live with. Year after year, our taxpayers continue to pay some of the highest tax rates in the country for dysfunctional leadership, constant blunders, and a failing economy, with no end in sight. Rhode Island has seen their money squandered on the glitzy New York cooler, warmer ad fiasco, and they barely escaped wasting hard-earned money on a foolhardy waterfront stadium for multimillionaires. They have struggled to get the complete answers behind the 38 Studios deal, and they've wasted their time waiting in line at the DMV and wondering why we can't get the computer program fixed after 10 years and tens of millions of dollars. We can't move our state forward if our government continues to take steps backward. The failures with the new UHIP benefit system is another depressing confirmation that our government is broken. How could responsible leaders launch a program so vital to the health and welfare of its neediest citizens, knowing it would cause suffering? That question is made even worse by the knowledge that we spent $362 million, almost a third of $1 billion, to build the software. Do our leaders realize that it is real money that is taken from the paychecks of hardworking Rhode Islanders? How can any state where a third of its citizens receive some form of public assistance claim to be in good shape? A reporter recently asked me, how would we get people off welfare? The answer is simple: by growing our economy and providing jobs. Sadly, Rhode Island continues to rank 50th of all states in its business climate. Lately, we've had a string of headline-grabbing announcements of large national companies opening up small units here in Rhode Island. For moving a few hundred jobs here, we have promised millions of dollars in taxpayer-funded incentives. Sometimes incentives are necessary to lure a large company to a state. Generally, these incentives are promised to companies who intend to bring a sizable portion of their operations with myriad levels of jobs. Unfortunately, the deals that the governor has made do not meet that criteria. Too few jobs are promised for far too much Rhode Island money given. Instead of paying companies to come to Rhode Island, it would be more productive to repair and reform the broken pieces of our economy so that existing small companies can strengthen and grow, and companies looking for a good place to relocate will give Rhode Island another look. The largest demographic of Rhode Islanders leaving our state is ages 25 to 45. That is an alarming statistic that contributes to the loss of our most productive workers and brings sadness to many parents. And no amount of free tuition will change that statistic. Only a thriving economy can. Instead of helping a few big companies, we should help all companies, finally creating a business-friendly environment so everyone can prosper. For decades, business leaders have been pleading with our state leaders to reform our hostile business policies. These pleas have fallen on deaf ears. It may be fun to spend other people's money, but here are things we can do that will cost nothing but political will and will take burden off our jobs climate. we have too many onerous regulations that hamper business growth. With diligence, we can eliminate those that add cost but no value. Our commercial property taxes are among the highest in the nation. We must give municipalities tools to control their spending so they don't have to continually search for more and more ways to tax. Republicans join the Speaker and the Governor in his promise to eliminate the car tax, but providing that relief for all Rhode Islanders must come from enabling municipalities to lower their expenses. Without that common sense approach, this hated tax and others will simply return. High premiums and deductibles are hurting not only businesses, but average families too. Those crushing health care costs are driven by the largest number of state mandates nationally. We need to pare down the list to essential services and work with insurance carriers to offer optional riders for the others. The governor promised to reinvent Medicaid and save $70 million. But instead of reinventing, she simply cut the rates we pay our doctors. This has led to limited access to care. We need real solutions to control costs, not harmful cuts that jeopardize the future health of Rhode Islanders. 41 states have enacted some sort of reform around joint and several liability, but not Rhode Island. We have refused to relieve businesses and municipalities of unmerited jeopardy and frivolous lawsuits. With all these impediments to prosperity, it would be reasonable for citizens to expect government to, at the very least, do no more harm. Yet last year, tolls were added to the list of reasons to avoid Rhode Island. That damaging law should be repealed. Tonight, the governor has proposed adding another expensive entitlement program that would purportedly ensure prosperity, but she's wrong. It takes hard work of reforming and eliminating damaging policies like these and more to develop a strong economy. Republicans are committed to creating a sustainable government in Rhode Island that's fair to its citizens and welcoming to businesses. When will the governor tackle these harmful policies and deliver on all the broken promises? Small companies are responsible for nearly 75% of our jobs. If we eliminate and reform these and other damaging policies, we would help them to be more competitive, to grow and add new equipment and jobs. While a small company adding 5 jobs may not command a big headline, imagine the power of hundreds of small companies all adding 5 jobs. Rhode Island would once again have a strong and thriving economy, and our graduates could find fulfilling work here. There is a small bridge in Slatersville that is the poster child for how state government has strayed from a common sense approach to spending priorities. During last year's toll debate, we were told that our bridges were in such critical condition that without the infusion of hundreds of millions of dollars, public safety could not be assured. As a result of those dire warnings, we would assume that bridge repair would be prioritized. Signs have been erected across the state announcing where and when DOT will begin work. The Slatersville Bridge has one of them. Planning on this 94-foot-long bridge began 34 years ago. But it wasn't until 3 years ago that one side of the bridge was closed, leaving only one lane open. A roadwork sign announces that the small span will be replaced in 2019. A car can drive across this small bridge in 5 seconds, but it will take 6 long years and an eye-popping $9.1 million to complete the work. Why so much, you might want to ask. The Department of Transportation is not just replacing the bridge. It's using toll money to build a park, a garden, and meandering walkways in the area. Luxury features that will neither improve our safety or the state's economic situation at massive expense to taxpayers. Parks and open green spaces are beneficial to communities, but this lack of focus on important priorities and prudent spending has hurt Rhode Island for far too long. Situations like this have become normal in Rhode Island, where overpriced projects fail to deliver on what they should do. It is nothing more than a metaphor for our government. For too long, our leaders have failed to deliver on their promises, producing bloated, unnecessary inconvenience and soaring cost of living, paid for by hardworking Rhode Islanders. Republican reforms are sustainable and will improve our economy with no additional cost. Ours are real solutions that work for everybody, not just the insiders. Rhode Island can be better. We just need courage and the will to move forward for all of our citizens. Tonight, our governor spoke with soaring rhetoric and more promises. But if history is any indicator, she'll do more harm than good. It's time that we start to deliver in Rhode Island for our taxpayers, our families, our children, and our future. Republicans have solutions, and we're ready to go to work. Thank you.
In talking about the car tax, you talked about the need for municipalities to reduce their expenses and how they need assistance in doing that. Can you be more specific? What specifically needs to happen at the state level for that to happen, and what would need to happen at the
one of the
level?
things that I have been thinking about is disability pensions. We know that the system is broken. There have been so many TV exposés on where people are abusing that system. But because of that abuse, the taxpayers have to put more money into the pension systems. So we need to really look at that and take out the waste, abuse, and the fraud that exist in disability pensions. And actually, that's run by state law. The joint and several liability reform is another. When we brought that bill forward last year, the League of Cities and Towns testified that the fact that it's joint and several liability hurts municipalities. Even when they're not liable, if they are considered to be even 1% liable in any kind of accident, they're sued. And they end up having to pay for lawyers and settlements that they're not really responsible for. And I also think of the prevailing wage. Right now, there's a cap at $1,000. Above $1,000, you have to use prevailing wage. Well, that was set in 1952 and hasn't been raised since then. So these are things that won't cost any more money, but they will cost political will. We should be doing them.
Is the agenda from the Democratic caucus and the governor this year worse than last year or the same?
I haven't compared them, but certainly tolls are pretty bad. And now we're adding another entitlement. I mean, how much money do they think people can afford? Rhode Islanders can only afford a certain amount of government. Everything that government spends comes from them. And they're having a hard time with the high cost of living now.
Thanks.